Let me tell you something about working in an abandoned office building. It's not as exciting as it sounds. My name is Leo, and I'm a data analyst for a company that went bankrupt 6 months ago, but somehow forgot to tell the IT department. So here I am, every night, sitting in a cubicle that smells like burnt coffee and existential despair, staring at spreadsheets that nobody will ever read. The building is technically condemned. The lights flicker, the heating system makes noises like a dying whale, and at exactly 3 a.m. every morning, the elevator in the East Wing opens to a different world. I discovered this by accident, obviously. I was trying to find the vending machine that supposedly still had cheese sandwiches from 2019, and I took a wrong turn. The elevator doors slid open, and instead of the parking garage, I found myself staring at a neon pink forest where the trees sang show tunes. I stood there for a solid minute, holding my sad cheese sandwich, wondering if I'd finally snapped. I mean, the burnout was real. I'd been working 80-hour weeks for 3 years straight. My therapist said I needed to find joy in small things. I don't think she meant interdimensional travel, but hey, I'll take what I can get. The forest was beautiful, in a my brain is melting kind of way. The trees had faces. They asked me if I wanted to hear a ballad. I said no, because I have boundaries, and also because I was pretty sure they were about to try and eat me. They looked hurt, which was honestly the most human reaction I'd gotten all week. After that, I started going back, every night at 3 a.m. It became my little secret, my escape from spreadsheets and unpaid overtime. I visited a flooded city where fish spoke poetry. I went inside a star, which was hot and also very loud. I walked through a desert made of clocks, which was deeply unsettling because time moved backward and I kept losing my keys. But the world I kept returning to was the library. It was enormous, with shelves that stretched up into darkness and spiral staircases that went nowhere. The books were ancient, bound in leather and gold, and they smelled like paper and honey and something else I couldn't name. And in the center of it all, behind a massive oak desk, sat Elias. He was beautiful, like make you forget how to speak beautiful. Dark hair that fell over his eyes, skin that seemed to glow faintly, and the kind of smile that made you want to tell him all your secrets. He wore old-fashioned clothes, waistcoats and cravats and everything, and he always seemed surprised to see me. "You came back," he said the second time I visited. "Did you think I wouldn't?" He shrugged, but there was something vulnerable in his eyes. People don't usually return. They see the library, they think it's boring. They want the singing forests or the exploding stars. Nobody wants the quiet place. "I like quiet," I said. "My entire life is spreadsheets and people yelling at me about quarterly reports. Quiet is a luxury." He smiled then, a real smile. And something in my chest did a little flip that I absolutely refused to acknowledge. We fell into a routine. I'd appear at 3 a.m. and we'd talk for hours. He told me about the books, about stories that could change your life if you read them at the right moment. I told him about my terrible boss, my non-existent love life, and the time I accidentally set the office microwave on fire. "You set a microwave on fire?" he asked, looking both horrified and fascinated. In my defense, the instructions said microwave safe. They lied. He laughed, and I decided right then that I would do anything to make him laugh again. It was the best sound I'd ever heard. Weeks passed. Months. I stopped caring about my job. I stopped caring about anything except those 3 hours between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. when I got to sit in that beautiful library and talk to the most incredible person I'd ever met. I fell in love with him, obviously. It was stupid and reckless and absolutely inevitable. He was kind and smart, and he looked at me like I was the most interesting thing in the universe. How was I supposed to resist that? We kissed for the first time in the poetry section, between shelves of romantic sonnets and tragic epics. His lips were warm and he tasted like honey, and I thought I might actually die from happiness. "I love you," I said, because I'm terrible at keeping things inside. He pulled back, his eyes wide. "You don't even know what I am." "I know you're Elias. That's enough." He shook his head, looking sad. "Leo, I'm not like you. I've been here for 1,000 years. I'm not even sure I'm real." "Seems real to me," I said, and kissed him again. That's when the elevator started skipping floors. The first time it happened, I was on my way to the library. The doors opened onto the singing forest instead. The trees looked confused. I looked confused. We stared at each other awkwardly for a moment before the doors slid shut again. The second time, I ended up in the flooded city, soaking wet and very annoyed. The third time, I stepped out into complete darkness. Nothing. No library, no forest, no star. Just black void stretching in every direction. I screamed. I'm not proud of it, but I screamed. Then the elevator doors closed, and I was back on my floor, shaking and terrified. "Elias," I whispered, "what's happening?" The next night, I finally made it to the library. But something was wrong. The books were shaking on their shelves. The lights were flickering. And Elias looked pale, paler than usual, with dark circles under his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Leo," he said, and his voice cracked. "We need to talk." "About what? About why your dimension is falling apart? About why I can't get here reliably anymore?" He flinched. "It's because of us." I felt my heart drop. "What?" "Your world and mine, they're not supposed to mix. The elevator was never meant to be used. It was a mistake, a glitch in the fabric of reality. Every time you come here, every time we're together, something breaks a little more." "Then fix it," I said desperately. "You've been here 1,000 years. You must know how to fix things." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm not trapped here, Leo." "What?" "I'm not trapped." He looked at me with such pain in his eyes that I almost couldn't bear it. "I'm keeping something out, and you just opened the door." The floor beneath us shook. The books flew off the shelves, and something in the shadows, something huge and dark and wrong, started to move. "Elias, what's happening?" He grabbed my hands, his grip surprisingly strong. "There's something in the void between dimensions. It's been trying to get through for centuries. I've been holding it back, keeping the library safe, keeping everything safe. But when you started visiting, when we fell in love, the barriers weakened. It's been feeding on the energy we create together." "Feeding on what?" "Emotion," he said simply. "Love, happiness, everything I've been denying myself for 1,000 years. I thought if I just stayed lonely, stayed isolated, I could keep it contained. But then you came, and I was so happy, and I didn't care about the consequences." The darkness was closer now. I could see shapes in it, things that shouldn't exist, things that made my brain hurt just to look at. "Can you stop it?" I asked. "I can try," he said. "But Leo, if I do this, I might not be able to come back. I might have to stay here, in the void, holding it back forever. "No," I said firmly. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." "Then I'm staying." "What?" I grabbed his face, made him look at me. "I said I'm staying. If you're going to fight this thing, I'm going to fight it with you." "Leo, you can't. You're human. You'll die." "Then I'll die with you. I'm not leaving you alone again." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a broken sound. "You're insane." "Probably," I agreed. "Now let's figure out how to save the universe." We fought that thing for hours. I don't remember most of it, honestly. There was a lot of running, a lot of screaming, a lot of Elias throwing books at shadows and shouting ancient words that made the air crackle. I did my best to help, which mostly consisted of hitting things with a heavy volume of Shakespeare and yelling encouragement. At some point, I realized that love wasn't weakening the barriers. It was making them stronger. The more we fought together, the more we refused to give up, the brighter the library became. "Elias!" I shouted over the chaos. "It's not feeding on us! We're pushing it back!" He turned to look at me, and I saw understanding dawn in his eyes. Of course. The void feeds on despair, on loneliness. But we're not despairing. We're fighting. We're together. Exactly. So stop trying to fight it alone and fight it with me. He laughed, and it was full of joy this time. "You're impossible. That's why you love me." Together, we pushed the darkness back. It wasn't easy. It was actually the hardest thing I've ever done. But with every step we took, every word we said, every moment we stayed side by side, the void retreated. Finally, the last of it was gone. The library was quiet again. The books were back on their shelves. And Elias was looking at me like I'd hung the moon. "It's gone," he breathed. "I think it's really gone." "So, you're not trapped anymore?" "I don't think so." He shook his head in wonder. "The void needed loneliness to survive. As long as we're together, as long as there's love, it can't get through." "So, what does that mean?" He smiled, that beautiful smile that I'd fallen in love with. "It means I can leave. I can go with you, if you want." "If I want?" I laughed. "Elias, I've been dreaming about this for months. Of course I want." He kissed me, and it was perfect. 3 years later, I'm still working at that stupid office building. The company finally went under for real, so now I'm the building manager. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and it lets me stay close to the elevator. Elias lives with me now. He adapted surprisingly well to the modern world, though he still thinks microwaves are the devil's contraption, and he's convinced that smartphones are magical. I let him believe it because it's adorable. We still go through the elevator sometimes. The singing forest has become our favorite date spot. The trees learned our names and stopped trying to eat us. The flooded city fish now write poetry about our love story, which is weird, but flattering. And the library, we visit it often. It's still beautiful, still peaceful, still our place. The void is gone, but we like to check on things anyway. Old habits. Sometimes I think about how crazy it all is. How a malfunctioning elevator and a lonely burnout and a 1,000-year-old librarian came together to save the universe. It sounds like a bad romance novel. But you know what? I don't care. I got the love of my life, a permanent source of adventure, and I finally quit that data analysis job. What more could I ask for? Well, maybe a cheese sandwich that's actually from this century. But hey, nobody's perfect.